Hi, I'm Marilyn Bradford with Right Recovery for You, and I'd like to talk with you today about the primary addiction, judgment and the wrongness of self. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself because I think my background is important for you to know I've been there too. I had lots of addictions in my life. I started with sugar when I was young. In fact, my addiction to sugar was so intense that my parents had to limit the amount of money I could spend on candy every day. I also had this addiction to judgment and the wrongness of self, but I wasn't aware of it till much later. As I grew up, I took on a lot of other addictions: cigarettes, alcohol. I had an eating disorder. I weighed in the 90s before I decided that, maybe I really was too thin. And what did I do? Well, I went the traditional route, because what else are you going to do? I went the route of therapy and later 12-step programs. Now, was any of that wrong? No. Did it change it to the degree I would like to have changed it? Not at all. Because basically what I was told was I had a disease I had to live with the rest of my life, and that I had to focus on the alcohol and the drinking or the cigarettes, and that was what the problem was, and the best I could do was manage the symptoms, and I was powerless to change anything, and on and on and on and on, how basically impotent and wrong I was. I just knew that that wasn't correct. There was something about it that really bothered me. And yet, as a psychotherapist, I didn't know what else to do for myself or my clients. So I started looking around and looking around and looking around, and I tried a lot of different things, and some of them had some things that I still use today, but nothing was really different, and nothing seemed to change things, not permanently. Then I found access consciousness. Now, interestingly, I wasn't looking for another way to deal with addiction. I thought I'd exhausted all of the sources, basically, because I'd looked at everything pretty much that this reality has to offer. But I started using these tools and techniques that I got from Access Consciousness with my psychotherapy clients, with my addiction clients, and they were getting better faster. It was amazing. Not just a little faster, but a lot faster. So I ended up going to Gary Douglas, who is the founder of Access Consciousness, and said, hey, can we do something with addiction? And out of that came Right Recovery for You, which is a set of tools and techniques that you can use to end permanently any addictive or compulsive behavior. And as I was playing around with these tools and using them more and more, I came to realize that everything I'd learned in this reality about addiction was basically a lie or a myth. It's not a disease. It's not something you can't get past. You're not powerless. It's not something that just happens to people who are under the bridge. It is something that is changeable. And I began to see that the key to changing it was not the focus on what the addiction seemed to be, whether it was drugs or relationships or sex or fixing other people's problems or whatever it was. It was looking at the core element that all addiction shared. And that's when I discovered the primary addiction to judgment and the wrongness of self. Now, why would this matter? Lots and lots and lots of reasons. To begin with, if you don't clear the primary addiction, the chances of you clearing your secondary addictions are slim to none. Why? Because if you think of yourself as inherently wrong and bad, and you spend all your time judging yourself, and say you're addicted to alcohol, that's an easy one. When you stop drinking, what's going to come to the forefront? All the pain of this judging yourself as wrong. And you're going to go back to drinking or whatever it is. And I really believe that's the basis of why the programs out there don't work, because they never truly deal with the primary addiction. So how does this get started anyway? And how come so many people have it? Well, let me ask you a question. Did you know at some early age that you just didn't fit? Did you ever look around when you were a kid going, this is just pretty nuts out here, and I don't seem to have the rule book, and my way of looking at the world it doesn't match anybody else's. So here's the thing. We're all born into a number of different paradigms. If you're born as an American in the southern states, that's a different paradigm than if you're born as an American in New England, which is a different paradigm from if you're born in southern Italy or born in Afghanistan or born in New Mexico or born in Africa. Wherever you're born, there's a cultural paradigm that has a whole lot of ways that you're supposed to be and act, and a whole lot of belief systems you're supposed to adopt. And then there are lots of other paradigms, like religious paradigms and political paradigms. I grew up in an academic paradigm where the thing that was valued was your brain. Basically, you existed from here up, and that was it, and nothing else had value. And what we do with all these paradigms, which are perpetrated by our parents and the cultures and the teachers and the society and the religious leaders, is that we either fit in or we're judged as wrong. And you either fit in or you have to take on that sense of wrongness of you and continue to judge yourself. And how many of you were told, ask yourself, did I ever hear anything like, you're too sensitive, you ask too many questions, you're too curious, can't you sit still, you're just too much? Were you made to feel that you were too much in one way or another? Now, I'm not saying that parents or the cultures were bad or wrong or mean, but I am saying that what matters in general is that you fit into paradigms that make you controllable. And guess what? If you have an addiction, you're one of those people that I bet will never fit. Now, you may think that's the bad news, but that's actually the good news. Because the good news is that means you're creative, that means you have talents and abilities that go way beyond the norm. That means as you get rid of this primary addiction, you can begin to create and generate an absolutely amazing life. I mean, think about all of the people who truly contributed to the world. Michelangelo, Martin Luther King, Leonardo da Vinci. They didn't fit. They weren't of the norm. And that's basically true for you too. You're not of the norm. And how does it get any better than that? The key is recognizing that you have this primary addiction and knowing that you're not wrong. You were just made wrong because you were the exotic flower in the field of daisies. And if you didn't look like a daisy, there was something wrong with you. So how do you get past it? That's what my class is in Ending the Primary Addiction, Judgment, and the Wrongness of You are all about. In those classes, you'll get tools and techniques and processes and different ways of looking at things, accurate information about addiction that you can use both to change as we go through the class and afterwards as you continue to monitor yourself to see if and when you're still making yourself wrong and have the tools to get rid of it and change it and go on to create and generate the life you would truly like to have and deserve to have. Thank you. Hope to see you in a class soon.